The first hammer struck the Winter Puppet Theater while Clemency Ward stood on its stage. Snow lay along the footlights. Children from the lower wards crowded beside market women and old soldiers for the final performance. Before the succession ceremony, they had expected a story. Duke Melvern Quist had brought carpenters instead. By order of the Regency Council, he announced, this theater is closed for presenting sedition beneath the disguise of children's entertainment. Clemency stood beneath the painted winter moon with one hand on the rail her husband had carved. The stage had survived 34 winters, 2 fires, and 1 siege. Silas Ward had repaired it each time. Now royal workers were measuring where to break it. Melvern lifted a silver wolf puppet from the evidence table. Its blue velvet cloak was worn thin. A crooked wooden crown hung above its ears. The wolf who borrowed a crown, he said. A ruler changes an oath, steals a throne, and hides behind a younger heir. You expect us to believe the resemblance is accidental? It is a cautionary play, Clemency replied. For children? For anyone old enough to mistake authority for truth. Your husband wrote it after serving inside the palace. My husband carved what he saw in men. The lower doors opened. Wolf Prince Oren entered beneath white succession banners, wearing a black winter coat clasped with the silver wolf of his house. Clemency remembered him at 14, hiding behind scenery to play the lantern knight, then tripping over a paper moon and laughing until the children forgave him. Today he did not look at the painted knight. Melvern bowed. Your Highness, the widow refuses to surrender the condemned figures. Did you perform the disputed play after the council prohibited it? Oren asked. Yes. Why? Because the prohibition named no false line. The resemblance to the succession is dangerous. Only if the succession resembles a stolen crown, Melvern said. She teaches common children to hiss when the false regent enters. They hiss because he locks the bread cellar during winter, Clemency said. Oren descended toward the stage. Tomorrow I take the succession oath. I will not allow a performance to turn the square into a tribunal. You think the theater created the division? I think symbols move faster than evidence. So do soldiers. You were warned. I was told to replace the ending with one where a stolen oath became lawful because enough years had passed. Melvern stepped closer. Seal the building. Seize the marionettes. Break the stage. Oren looked at his uncle. For one breath, Clemency thought he might refuse. Then he said, Do it. Oren had not swung the hammer. That almost made it worse. He had only lent the ruin his permission. The second hammer struck. Wood split beneath Clemency's feet. The audience was driven into the snow. Painted forests collapsed. The children's moon cracked across its face. Clemency did not plead. She carried each puppet to its chest herself, wrapping them in wool before the guards could throw them together. Silas had carved the joints according to remembered movements, insisting that hands told the truth more faithfully than mouths. The Moon Marionettes did not invent stories. They preserved actions their maker had truly witnessed, storing movement in moonwood joints until the proper stage called it forward. They did not judge guilt, choose a keeper, or speak for the dead. Moonwood remembered pressure, angle, and sequence, not motive, not names, not confession. Oren watched her secure the silver wolf. You may keep your rooms above the costumes, he said. The council is closing the theater, not casting you into the street. You broke the room where my husband and I taught people their own history, and you want credit for leaving me the attic. I am preventing unrest. No. You are making truth homeless before your uncle's ceremony. Clemency placed the chest key on the ruined stage. If you mean to own the silence, lock it yourself. Oren did. The royal seal closed across the puppet chest. The final curtain dragged through snow and plaster dust across the floor where Oren had once played a hero. By nightfall, guards stood at every door. The stage was split through its center. Silas's workbench had been carried away as evidence. A succession bell rang from the palace hill. Tomorrow, Oren would swear the oath Melvern had prepared. Moonlight entered through the broken roof and touched the gap beneath the sealed chest lid. Something tapped inside. Not a voice. Wood against wood. The hammer blows had shifted the wrapped figures. Moonlight warmed the old joints, releasing tension Silas had carved into them years before. A narrow silver hand slid through the gap. Then another. The wax seal remained unbroken. Clemency recognized a stored sequence trying to complete itself. The silver wolf rose only as far as the lid allowed. Behind it, the crooked-crowned villain twisted at the shoulder. No strings moved above them. No puppeteer chose the figures. A hidden groove pulled the villain's arm through one exact path. The wolf puppet lowered to one knee and extended both hands as though presenting a heavy tablet. The crowned figure stepped behind it. Its hand moved toward the tablet, then changed direction. The wrist turned inward. The shoulder dropped. A narrow stage knife descended beneath the wolf's ribs. The motion had never appeared in the children's play. Clemency had seen Silas test it once in private. Silas had carved it into the villain's shoulder years ago, then hidden it beneath comic gestures so the court would mistake testimony for performance. Silas had not left her a ghost. He had left a joint that could not forget pressure. A floorboard creaked in the dark balcony. Oren stood behind the broken rail, staring at the knife-hand posture. The marionette had not told him who held the blade. It had only shown how the blade moved. Oren's face lost its practiced stillness. That is the movement they removed from my father's sealkeeper's death record. The marionettes had not cleared Clemency. They had only shown the court that the play had learned its gesture from life. Duke Melvernquist stood beneath the broken balcony, while the crooked-crowned figure remained frozen above the kneeling wolf. A resemblance manufactured by a dismissed craftsman is not evidence, he said. It is satire arranged to survive its author. Clemency looked at the stage knife lodged beneath the silver wolf's ribs. Then let witnesses examine the joint. The theater is sealed. By the prince who ordered it broken. Oren descended from the balcony. No more hammers. Melvern turned. The council ordered the stage dismantled. The order is suspended until the movement is examined. Suspended. Not reversed. The theater remained sealed. Silas's workbench remained in royal custody. He had stopped the hammers. He had not rebuilt the stage. The royal seal still sat on the puppet chest because his hand had put it there. Oren ordered the chest brought beneath the witness lamps. 2 clerks widened the breathing gap and lifted the lid without disturbing the figures. Clemency refused to let a court hand bend the villain's shoulder. Moonwood records pressure. Force it now, and you will overwrite what Silas preserved. Melvern's mouth tightened. You speak as though timber remembers truth. It remembers movement. Truth still requires people to compare it. She showed the clerks the hidden groove inside the shoulder socket. The channel narrowed at one exact angle. The arm could rise, turn inward, and descend only along the path Silas had carved. The marionette does not know who held the knife, Clemency said. It cannot name guilt or distinguish murder from defense. It repeats a movement its maker witnessed closely enough to preserve, Melvern said. Or imagined after years of resentment. Then compare it with the record the palace cut away. Oren ordered his father's sealkeeper death file brought from the succession archive. Melvern objected. The death of sealkeeper Ansel Vey was adjudicated during the Regency crisis. Reopening it hours before accession turns uncertainty into spectacle. Then the record should survive comparison, Oren said. The file arrived in a gray iron case. Official cause. Fatal fall from the western oath stair. The physician's drawing showed a deep wound beneath the left ribs, described as damage caused by a broken bronze rail. Clemency read the measurements twice. Bronze rails tear outward. This entered downward and inward. Melvern said, a falling body turns. So does a knife hand. Under witness light, Clemency released the villain puppet's shoulder spring. The arm rose behind the kneeling wolf, wrist rotating inward before the narrow blade descended steeply. The physician placed a measuring rod along the motion. The angle matched the wound, drawing almost exactly. The puppet had not told the court who killed Ansel Vey. It had shown how the knife moved. Melvern faced Oren. Silas Ward had access to public rumor. Wound details circulate after royal deaths. The physician's drawing was sealed, Oren said. Festival workers entered archive corridors. Clerks gossip. Clemency examined the file's stitching. One page had been cut away near the back. What was removed? A supplemental movement sketch, the archivist said. The first physician recorded the sealkeeper's shoulders and hands when he was found. Why was it removed? Oren asked. The Regency Council deemed it unnecessary. Which council member requested that? The archivist's eyes lifted toward the council bench, then fell before reaching any face. Melvern remained calm. Do not turn a frightened clerk's silence into accusation. My office standardized damaged files after the coup attempt. Coup attempt? Clemency asked. The official record calls it a stair accident. A crisis contains many events, and many names for the same death. Oren ordered the festival access ledgers opened. Silas Ward's name appeared on the palace workshop roll for the night Ansel died. He had been assigned one corridor from the western oath stair. Departure time. Unrecorded, Melvern said. Which proves only that Silas had opportunity to invent scandal. You called him dismissed, Clemency said. He was still under palace assignment that night. He was dismissed afterward for removing royal materials. What materials? Discarded moonwood, costume cloth, damaged festival pieces, or something the court later wished it had counted. Beside Silas's name stood a workshop notation. Villain shoulder recut after midnight. Movement copied from west stair. The handwriting belonged to Silas. The line named no attacker, only place and motion. Melvern said. A bitter man transformed an accident into treason, then hid it inside a children's play. Why hide it? Clemency asked. Why dress a witnessed murder in a joke the court was willing to laugh at? To escape punishment for sedition? No. Because laughter made the movement harmless enough to survive inspection. The truth had moved. The stage was still broken. Children would still wake tomorrow to lock doors and call it justice because adults had written the notice. A stopped hammer was not a restored theater, and a matching wound was not yet a solved coup. Oren had stopped the ruin from continuing. He had not admitted he had ordered it. He ordered Clemency recorded as the theater's lawful witness and the Moon Marionettes preserved under joint court and theater seal. He did not apologize or reopen the doors. Before the clerks closed Ansel Vey's file, Clemency found one final inventory line beneath the cut page. Property carried at death. Royal seal. Winter key. Succession oath tablet. The seal and key had been returned. The tablet had not. Oren looked toward the succession banners above the shattered stage. Which oath? The archivist opened an older index. The tablet signed before your father's succession line was amended. Tomorrow. Oren was meant to swear the revised oath, but the man who guarded the earlier one had died with it in his hands. The riddle had moved from the knife to the oath. Oren stood beneath the torn succession banners while the archivist held the index. Outside, palace bells rehearsed the oath hour he was still expected to survive unchanged. What did the earlier tablet say? The index records the witnesses, sealing date, and succession line recognized before the Regency amendments. The tablet itself is missing. Melvern Quist folded his hands behind his back. Missing does not mean suppressed. Older oaths were superseded when war or disputed claims threatened the crown. Clemency looked at the empty inventory line. A superseded oath is archived, unless its authority expired. Expired law is still kept when someone dies carrying it. Sealkeeper Ansel Vey died during a Regency crisis. Duplicate tablets were sometimes destroyed to prevent rival claimants from weaponizing obsolete language. Then there should be a destruction entry. Fire damaged the lower archive. The index survived. Oren looked toward the cracked stage. The theater remains sealed until the tablet's custody is established. You still speak as though the theater is the danger. Clemency said. I am preventing evidence from being altered. You already allowed the evidence room to be broken apart. He did not apologize. The royal seal still held the puppet chest closed, and guards remained at every door. Oren ordered Silas Ward's dismissal file brought from the festival archive. Melvern said. Silas was removed for taking royal materials without authorization. Clemency opened the inventory. Discarded moonwood strips. Damaged procession wolf. Blue velvet remnants. 3 brass finger rings. 1 sealed object. Condition unknown. No description followed. What was the sealed object? She asked. The festival clerk shook his head. The receiving line was left blank. Melvern said. Silas fled before a full accounting. He came home before dawn and never left the city. He refused palace questioning. He refused questioning without a witness after a sealkeeper died 1 corridor from his workshop. Oren read the charge date. It had been entered the morning after Ansel Vey's death. The dismissal followed 3 days later. The property office knew something was missing before the death inventory was complete. Festival stores were checked after any palace disturbance, Melvern replied. Silas's possession of royal materials made him a reasonable suspect. Reasonable enough to dismiss, Clemency said, but not reasonable enough to name the object. Melvern looked toward the marionettes. Or he stole an oath relic and spent years teaching children to distrust the house he robbed. The marionettes cannot prove what he carried. At last we agree. They can preserve what touched them. Clemency asked for the crooked-crowned villain to be removed under witness seal. The clerks documented the wrapping before placing the figure on the broken stage. It did not move. The stored sequence had ended. Now only the materials could answer. Clemency examined the crown. Silas had made it deliberately foolish. 1.2 tall, one side bent, silver leaf rubbed thin by children's hands. The lining was replaced, she said. When? Oren asked. Clemency touched the knot inside the seam and went still. The gray thread is not from Silas's bench. It is mourning thread. The cheap winter kind I bought after his burial, when I repaired the puppets alone. Melvern said. Then you opened it. I replaced torn lining. I did not open the wooden spine. You expect the court to accept that distinction? I expect the court to examine the work. She removed 3 stitches beneath witness light. Inside lay wax dust. The archivist leaned closer. Royal oath wax was mixed with powdered pearl. The same wax sealed festival proclamations, Melvern said. Clemency nodded. So the dust identifies material, not document. She turned the puppet over. Silas had carved the villain with an unusually broad spine. 4 plugs ran beneath its cloak. Oren asked. Can they be opened without damage? Yes, if the theater's tools are returned. Use palace tools. No. Straight blades could erase the pressure edges. Melvern said. The widow is delaying lawful examination. She is protecting the only surface your archive has not cut. Oren ordered Silas's workbench returned under guard. 1 leg had been broken during removal. The moonwood awls remained, though the fine blade drawer had been forced. Clemency selected the smallest curved awl and eased free the first plug. 3 cavities were empty. Behind the 4th lay compressed dark felt. No tablet remained inside. Melvern said, a hiding place without an object. Clemency lifted the felt. The inner wall carried a rectangular depression. One edge preserved the ridge of a tablet frame. Near the center, a circular pressure mark had been driven so deeply into the moonwood that the grain had never risen again. The archivist measured it. Same width as the missing tablet listed in Anselve's property register. The marionette had not revealed what the oath said. It had not named who removed it or why. It proved only that an object matching the missing oath tablet had once been hidden inside the villain's spine after Silas left palace custody. The mourning thread proved the lining had been opened after his burial. The pressure mark proved custody. It did not prove survival, Melvern said. Then Clemency may have removed it herself. Or someone searched the puppet while using a repair I made as cover. The distinction is convenient. The distinction is physical. The theater had kept what the archive had cut away. Oren ordered the puppet preserved and Silas's dismissal file reopened. He did not lift the closure notice. He was using the theater as evidence while still treating it as a crime scene Clemency had made. He did not admit that his command had broken the stage, holding the only surviving trace of the oath he was meant to swear. A stopped hammer was not repair. The oath had left its shape behind. That was not the same as being found. But someone had opened the puppet after Silas's burial and removed whatever its moonwood spine had once protected before the court came to search it. The pressure mark proved custody. It did not prove survival. Melvern Quist stood beside the opened puppet as though the empty wooden spine had strengthened his case. Silas Ward removed a royal object from palace custody. His own construction concealed it. The simplest conclusion is theft. Clemency held the strip of mourning thread beneath the witness lamp. The puppet was opened after his burial. You repaired the lining. I replaced torn cloth. Someone forced the 4th plug beneath it. She turned the villain figure toward the clerks. The first 3 plugs carried smooth crescent marks from Silas's curved awl. The 4th bore a straight incision across its rim. Whoever opened it had used a narrower blade and pushed inward against the grain, Melvern said. Perhaps Silas used another tool. After he was dead? Perhaps you did. Clemency looked at him. I know every blade on my husband's bench. None cut that way. Oren ordered the Winter Puppet Theater's tool and property inventories brought from the evidence room. The closure notice remained nailed across the entrance. The guards remained at every door. Beyond them, palace workers continued raising the succession dais in the square. Each hammer strike outside answered the damage already done inside. The oath hour had not moved. Only the foundation beneath it had begun to fail. Silas's workbench stood near the broken edge of the stage. One leg had split during removal, but Clemency ignored the fresh damage and examined the fine blade drawer. Its lock had been forced, not during the royal seizure. The splintered wood beneath the iron latch had darkened with old dust and winter oil. A recent break would have shown pale grain. "This happened before your carpenters entered," she said. The evidence master frowned. The theater inventory described the drawer as damaged. "When was that inventory made?" 3 weeks ago. Clemency looked toward Melvern. "The theater was not officially searched 3 weeks ago. It was under preliminary sedition inquiry," he replied. "Without notice? A covert inquiry is not announced to its subject. So councilmen entered my theater before deciding my plays were dangerous. They entered because your plays were already dangerous. They were looking for the tablet. They were looking for treasonous material. A missing royal oath would qualify." Melvern's expression did not change. So would forged scripts, coded stage directions, and stolen seals. Oren asked for the preliminary inquiry order. The evidence master produced a folded warrant carrying the Regency Council mark. It authorized inspection of the costume stairs, storage loft, puppet workshop, and archive shelves. No witness from the theater had signed it. No itemized search record followed. "Who entered?" Oren asked. "2 council investigators and a palace archive officer." "Namis?" The evidence master read them. Both investigators had since been transferred to northern estates. The archive officer remained in the capital, but had not reported for succession duty that morning. Melvern said, "Personnel movement during accession week is ordinary. So is disappearance when the record benefits from it," Clemency asked. "You turn absence into guilt too easily. And your office turned silence into permission." Oren ordered the old costume stair opened. The lower passage had been sealed with paint after Silas's death, when Clemency could no longer afford to heat unused rooms. Beneath the flaking white layer, 3 boot scrapes crossed the threshold. Council boots carried square iron heel nails. The marks matched. Inside the workshop, shelves had been disturbed and replaced. Dust lines showed where puppet crates had been shifted. The children's scenery trunks had been opened from the back rather than through their visible locks. Whoever searched the theater had known how performance rooms concealed compartments. Clemency returned to Silas's workbench. The fine blade drawer contained awls, joint hooks, thread knives, and 1 empty groove lined with black velvet. "The missing blade?" Oren asked. "Silas's spine knife." "What was it used for?" "Cutting narrow cavities inside finished puppets," Melvern said. "Then Silas possessed the exact tool needed to hide, and later remove the tablet." "No." Clemency touched the empty groove. The spine knife curved left. The incision on the 4th plug runs straight. Tools can be reshaped, not without changing the groove that held them. The velvet lining preserved the knife's curved outline. The missing tool could not have made the straight cut inside the puppet. A witness clerk brushed the drawer edge with pale ash powder. A second blade mark appeared beneath the lock. Narrow, straight, driven downward. The same width as the incision across the 4th plug. "The broken drawer was not damaged by careless transport," Clemency said. "Someone forced it before the hammers came." Melvern folded his hands. "Investigators may open secured furniture during a lawful search. Then where is the blade they used?" "Returned to its office." "Which office?" "The inquiry record is incomplete. The archive loses records whenever completeness becomes inconvenient." Oren looked toward the sealed doors. He was no longer searching a theater. He was searching the foundation of the oath waiting for him tomorrow. Still, he did not remove the closure notice. He ordered the workbench preserved under joint seal, and the missing archive officer located before the succession ceremony. Clemency watched the clerks claim another piece of her life as evidence. "You continue to use what you broke," she said. "I am trying to establish what happened. You established that the theater deserved destruction before you established whether its story was false." He had no answer that repaired anything. The children would still find locked doors in the morning, The stage remained split. Silas's tools remained under royal hands. The witness clerk lifted the forced drawer to examine its underside. Inside the straight blade groove, something pale clung to the wood. Not ordinary candle wax, not stage paint. Pearl white powder shone beneath the lamp. The archivist tested it against the residue found inside the crooked crown. Royal oath wax. Clemency looked from the drawer to the puppet's forced spine. The tablet had not been found. Its words remained unknown. But someone had entered the theater before the official closure, opened Silas's workbench with a straight royal blade, and used that blade against the puppet cavity, where the missing oath had once been hidden. The theater had not merely been condemned. It had been searched for the truth before the prince was persuaded to destroy the room that kept it. The pearl-white dust did not identify the hand that cut the tablet free. It identified the kind of blade that had touched it. Royal archive knives were forged narrower than theater tools so clerks could separate wax tablets without damaging seals pressed along their edges. Each blade carried a small number beneath the grip and had to be entered into an issue ledger before leaving the succession archive. Oren ordered the ledger opened. Melvern Quist remained beside the broken workbench. A royal blade inside a lawful sedition inquiry proves procedure, not theft. It proves the search team used a tool they never recorded. Clemency said, "Preliminary inquiries do not list every instrument. They listed my curtains, children's masks, and 3 cracked lanterns. They somehow forgot the knife used to open the puppet containing a missing royal oath. The issue ledger arrived before midnight. Only one straight archive knife had left the succession wing during the 3 weeks before the theater's official closure. Blad de Saventain. Issued to the palace archive officer assigned to the Winter Puppet Theater inquiry. Purpose: examination of concealed political materials. Returned 4 days later. Condition: edge damaged and resharpened. Clemency compared the blade width recorded in the ledger with the cut across the 4th wooden plug. It matched, Melvern said. The officer was authorized to examine sealed compartments. Then where is his examination record? Perhaps among the papers removed for review. Your office has had 3 weeks to find it. Accession security involves more than one widow's stage. Oren looked at the evidence master. The archive officer was ordered here. Why has he not appeared? He did not report for duty this morning. Where does the palace believe he is? A travel warrant says he left for the northern record houses. Clemency studied the warrant. The departure line carried a council stamp but no stable receipt, no gate time, and no escort notation. A man traveling north in winter requires a horse, she said. Melvern answered. Not every stable record survives accession traffic. Then we begin with the ones that did. Oren ordered the palace gate and stable books brought into the theater. No horse had been issued to the officer. No northern coach listed him. No city gate recorded his departure. The travel warrant proved only that someone wanted the palace to believe he was gone. Melvern's voice remained level. Or he abandoned his office after mishandling the inquiry, conveniently before he could explain what he removed. Clemency said. Oren ordered the officer's archive desk opened under witness seal. The theater doors remained locked while the search was conducted elsewhere. Clemency stood beneath the shattered painted moon and watched clerks carry more records into the room her audience could no longer enter. Oren was using the theater to test royal truth while still keeping children outside it. He had not repaired that contradiction. The officer's desk contained no oath tablet. It held a sharpened quill, 2 unfinished inventories, a strip of pearl wax cleaning cloth, and a carbon copy of the preliminary theater search. The official version named no removed object. The carbon sheet preserved pressure from a line that had later been scraped away. Clemency angled it beneath the witness lamp. Flat sealed piece recovered from villain figure. Approximate width, 9 inches. Pearl wax residue. Transferred without public inventory. The measurement matched the impression inside the crooked crown puppet. The theater had the tablet, Oren said. The theater had an object of similar dimensions, Melvern replied. Festival props often carried imitation seals. Then why erase it from the report? To prevent theatrical material from being mistaken for royal evidence. You erased it before anyone could compare the two. Melvern looked toward Clemency. Silas Ward constructed false crowns, false seals, false swords, and false deaths. His profession depended on objects resembling what they were not. And your profession depends on declaring resemblance harmless when it threatens you. Oren took the carbon sheet. Where was the object transferred? The surviving line ended before the destination. A second impression appeared lower on the page, partly hidden beneath a later inventory. Clemency recognized the shorthand used by festival storekeepers. Turn the sheet. The clerk reversed it and rubbed charcoal across the underside. Letters surfaced through pressure. Accession preparation custody. No person named. No receiving signature. Only a destination mark shaped like a winter flame. The archivist went still. That mark belongs to the accession brazier vault. Oren looked toward the palace hill. What is kept there? Superseded oath copies, damaged seal wax, rejected succession drafts, and ceremonial materials scheduled for destruction before the new oath is sworn. Melvern said, which supports lawful disposal. If the object was an obsolete tablet, accession law required it removed from public circulation. A missing oath is not obsolete because your office carried it to a furnace, Clemency said. The amended succession had governed for 17 years. Then the older tablet should have been archived beside the amendment. Not if rival factions could use it to fracture the realm. The crown wanted the old tablet missing, and the new oath unquestioned. Melvern faced Oren. Tomorrow's accession binds divided houses to one sovereign. Delaying it over a dead craftsman's concealed prop may produce the instability Silas spent years encouraging. Clemency looked at the broken stage. Silas taught children that rulers who fear old words usually fear what those words require. Oren's eyes hardened. This is not a performance. No. In a performance, the prince learns what his permission costs before the final curtain. The words landed between them. Oren had signed the Accession Protection Directive that allowed the Regency Council to conduct covert searches for symbolic threats. His seal appeared at the bottom of the preliminary warrant. He had not ordered the puppet opened. He had authorized the men who opened it. He had lent the search the same thing he later lent the ruin. Permission. Still, he did not reopen the theater. He ordered the succession ceremony delayed until midday, and placed the brazier vault under guard. Melvern objected. A delayed oath will be read as weakness. Then the court may survive several hours of honesty. It was not an apology. Clemency's doors remained locked. Her stage remained broken. But for the first time, Oren allowed the ceremony to move instead of forcing truth to move around it. A palace bell sounded once from the hill. The archivist looked toward the window. That is the brazier preparation bell. It should not ring before dawn, Oren said. A second bell followed. Then a third. A runner entered the theater, breathless. The accession vault was opened under Regency authority. The old oath materials have already been moved to the ceremonial furnace. Has the furnace been lit? Oren asked. Not yet. The runner looked toward Melvern, then lowered his eyes. But the firekeeper has orders to begin before midnight. The furnace had not yet been lit. But the men assigned to erase the old oath were already stacking wood beneath it. Clemency reached the accession vault beside Oren, with 2 witness clerks and the theater archivist behind them. Melvern arrived moments later under Regency guard, his expression composed, despite the midnight bells. The vault stood beneath the palace chapel, where superseded proclamations and rejected succession drafts were burned before each accession. Bronze doors opened onto a circular chamber lined with stone shelves. At its center, the ceremonial furnace waited beneath the carved jaws of a silver wolf. Bundles of damaged oath copies lay on the floor. No missing tablet was visible. Oren faced the firekeeper. Who ordered the preparation? The man held out a folded instruction. Regency Disposal Authority. All obsolete succession materials were to be destroyed before the oath hour. Melvern examined the seal. The instruction is lawful. It was issued after I delayed the ceremony, Oren said. Delay increases the risk of factional interference. The vault had to be secured. Burning the evidence is not securing it, only if the object is evidence. We still possess no proof that Silas removed an authentic tablet rather than a festival imitation. Clemency went to the stacked bundles. The theater search report described pearl wax residue and the exact dimensions from Anselve's death inventory. Dimensions can be copied. So can legal language. That does not make every oath false. She examined the destruction tags tied to the bundles. Each tag named the archive shelf, record type, and reason for disposal. One tag had been cut away. A pale cord remained around an empty space between two stacks. "What rested here?" she asked. The firekeeper hesitated. "A sealed flat object. Stone, wood, or wax. Dark wax over silver backing." The archivist inhaled sharply. "Royal succession tablets use silver backing so they cannot be altered by reheating," Melvern said. "So do ceremonial oath replicas." "Where is it?" Oren asked. The firekeeper pointed toward the furnace mouth. A blackened corner protruded beneath the first layer of wood. Clemency moved before the guards could stop her. She pulled the bundle free. Heat had not touched it yet. But someone had split the outer wax casing with a blade. One half of the silver backing remained. The other was missing. A line of old lettering survived along the broken edge. The archivist read it beneath the witness lamp. "Succession shall pass through the king's acknowledged issue unless the Winter Council." The sentence ended at the break. Melvern said, "Incomplete language proves nothing." "It proves the tablet was royal," Clemency replied. "It proves one half may have been copied from a lawful oath." "Then where is the other half?" No one answered. The pressure mark inside the crooked crown puppet matched the full tablet width. Silas had once hidden an intact object. Someone had removed it after his burial. Now only half had reached the furnace. The other half was still in someone's custody. Oren examined the split edge. "What cut this?" The archivist compared it to the Royal Archive blade record. Blade Saventaine. The same knife issued for the covert search of Clemency's theater. The same knife used to force the puppet spine. Melvern folded his hands. The archive officer may have divided an obsolete tablet for classification. "Without an inventory?" Oren asked. "During accession preparation, damaged materials are separated by relevance." Which half was relevant? The one governing current succession. And the other? Possibly ceremonial language. Clemency turned the silver backing toward the lamp. Tiny pressure scratches crossed the reverse side. Not writing. Stage marks. Silas had pressed the tablet against unfinished moonwood while fitting it inside the puppet's spine. The grain pattern from the villain figure remained faintly impressed in the wax. The tablet had been inside the puppet, not a replica shaped later to resemble it. Melvern said, "Silas stole it." "That remains the clearest explanation." "Then why did your investigators remove it without charging him posthumously?" Clemency asked. "Because accession security required quiet handling. Quiet enough to cut the oath in half. The realm has survived 17 years under the amended succession. A realm can survive a lie longer than a child survives winter hunger. Survival does not make either just." Oren looked toward the furnace. The oath he was meant to swear at midday depended on language someone had physically divided. He ordered the surviving half placed under triple witness seal. Melvern objected. "You cannot delay the crown indefinitely over a fragment. I can delay it until the fragment is read before the full council. That will invite every rival house to challenge the throne. Then the throne should survive the document it replaced." It was the first decision that cost him more than ceremony. Still, he did not reopen the Winter Puppet Theater. The closure notice remained. Clemency's stage remained split. He had moved the oath hour. He had not repaired the room that taught ordinary people why oaths mattered. A clerk searched the disposal register. The cut tablet had been entered under two destinations. Lower half, ceremonial furnace. Upper half, private succession review. Receiving authority, Regency Archive. No individual signature. Clemency looked at Melvern. He did not flinch. "Private review protects the crown from forged claims," he said. "Then open the private review chamber. That chamber contains sealed royal lineage records. The missing half of the oath is now evidence. It may contain language capable of destabilizing the city before accession." Oren's voice hardened. "Open it." Melvern bowed slightly. "As prince, you may order the chamber opened. As the man expected to become sovereign by noon, you should understand what follows if the old oath excludes you." The warning entered the vault more quietly than any threat. Clemency looked at Oren. For the first time, the missing tablet was not only evidence against his uncle, it might be evidence against his own right to inherit. Oren held her Hase. "Open the chamber." The Regency archivist produced the private review key. It turned halfway, then stopped. The lock had been packed from the inside, with fresh pearl-white oath wax. Someone had sealed the second half beyond reach after the furnace bells began. Fresh oath wax had not sealed the chamber against entry. It had sealed someone inside. Oren ordered the palace locksmith forward, but Clemency stopped him before he drove an iron spike into the keyway. Pearl wax hardens under pressure. Break it from this side and you push the seal deeper. Melvern Quist stood beneath the vault lamps. The chamber was designed to resist forced entry. It was also designed by men who needed servants to repair it. Clemency examined the stonework beside the door. A narrow, decorative panel showed silver wolves lifting a winter crown. One wolf's paw sat slightly lower than the others. Silas had carved similar reliefs for palace festivals. Behind them ran service spaces for curtain ropes, lantern chains, and ceremonial lifts. The private review chamber shares a wall with the accession stage machinery, she said. Melvern replied. Festival passages were closed after the Regency crisis. Closed to performers, not to maintenance. Oren looked at her. You know another entrance? My husband helped build one. The words held no comfort for him. He had destroyed Silas's stage before learning how often the palace depended on the hands it dismissed as entertainment. Clemency led them through the chapel storage room. Behind stacked succession banners, she found an iron ring painted the same white as the wall. The ring released a narrow panel. Cold air moved through the opening. Melvern said, This passage is not listed in the succession plans. Neither was Silas's work when the court needed someone blamed. The crawl space beyond was built for stage mechanics, not princes. Oren removed his ceremonial coat and followed Clemency between counterweight chains and old lantern pipes. He did not ask her forgiveness for needing the knowledge of the theater he had sealed. At the far end, a wooden service hatch opened above the private review chamber. Inside, the missing archive officer lay beside the record table with his wrists bound in accession ribbon. He was alive. A strip of pearl wax had been pressed across his mouth. Oren entered first and removed it. Who sealed the door? The officer coughed before answering. I never saw his face. Melvern's expression remained composed. A masked intruder inside the succession wing is a convenient story. The officer looked at him. I was ordered to divide the old tablet. By whom? Oren asked. The instruction came under Regency archive seal, Melvern said. Many succession orders carry that seal. No personal signature? Clemency asked. None. Why did you obey? The tablet was entered as dangerous, obsolete material. I was told one half would be burned and one half reviewed before the new oath. You opened the puppet? Oren asked. The officer lowered his eyes. I took Blade 17 to the Winter Puppet Theater. Clemency stood very still. You searched my husband's work after his burial. I was told Silas had stolen royal property. You cut open the spine. Yes. And removed the tablet. Yes. The admission did not identify the architect of the search. It confirmed custody. The officer explained that the tablet had been intact when he found it inside the crooked-crowned villain. He carried it to the succession archive, where a sealed instruction required him to divide it along the central witness line. What did the upper half contain? Oren asked. I was not permitted to read it fully. You cut a royal oath without reading it? I read enough to know why they wanted it separated. Melvern's voice sharpened. Careful. Repeating incomplete legal language during accession can provoke false claims. The officer looked at Oren. The old oath recognized your father's line. Relief moved through no one. He continued. But only under a condition. What condition? The king's issue could inherit only if the Winter Council confirmed that no regent had altered the royal witness list during minority rule. Silence filled the chamber. Oren had been a child when his father's health failed. Melvern had governed as chief regent. The earlier oath did not exclude Oren. It questioned whether the council that confirmed his line had remained lawful. Melvern said, a standard safeguard from a period of civil fear. The amended oath removed obsolete obstacles to stable succession. A missing safeguard is not an obstacle, Clemency said. It is the part someone needed forgotten. The officer described the upper half. It carried the sealkeeper's witness list and a clause requiring the original tablet to be displayed publicly before any amendment could replace it. That display had never occurred. Oren looked toward Melvern. Was the old tablet shown before the amended oath was accepted? The Regency Council certified that its authority had lapsed. That is not what I asked. The realm required continuity, and the law required display. Melvern did not answer directly. Clemency examined the record table. A fresh cut crossed the black wax mat where the upper half had rested. Pearl dust remained near a narrow transport groove. Where was it taken? She asked. The archive officer pointed to an empty silver case. The masked man packed it there after binding me. Did he carry it out through the main door? No, he used the stage passage. The same hidden machinery that had brought Clemency inside had carried the oath away. The palace had borrowed theater architecture to erase a document while condemning the theater for preserving memory. Oren ordered the chamber sealed under witnesses and the officer placed in protective custody. He still did not reopen the Winter Puppet Theater. Clemency looked at him. You trust my passages now. I trust what they revealed. You trusted my stage enough to enter the truth through its walls. The children are still locked outside the place that taught you how to recognize it. His face tightened. Beyond the chamber, the accession bells began their final rehearsal. The officer reached for the empty silver case. There was a transfer slip beneath it. The paper remained caught under the hinge. Oren unfolded it. Destination, succession, Deus Foundation. Delivery time. Before first public bell. The upper half of the missing oath had not been taken away from the ceremony. It had been hidden beneath the platform where Oren was expected to swear the replacement. By dawn, the platform built to crown Oren had become the hiding place of the oath that could unmake his ceremony. The succession square was filling when Clemency arrived with Oren, the archive officer, and 3 witness clerks. White banners hung from the roofs. Children from the lower wards stood behind rope barriers, close enough to see the royal dais but still locked out of the theater where they had learned what an oath meant. Melvern Quist waited beside the platform in dark Regency robes. You cannot dismantle the accession stage before the city, he said. Panic will decide what the evidence has not. Clemency studied the structure. This is festival machinery. Beneath the carved wolves, seams divided the floor into lift panels. Counterweight chains disappeared behind the rear cloth. Silas had designed the first version years ago, so pageant kings could rise through winter smoke. The palace had borrowed theater craft for ceremony while condemning it as sedition. Oren looked toward the crowd. Can you open the foundation without bringing down the dais? Yes, Melvern said. She is not a palace engineer. No, Clemency replied. Palace engineers hide mechanisms. Puppeteers make them move. The first public bell sounded. Oren stopped the herald. The oath is delayed until the platform is inspected. A murmur spread through the square. Every rival house will read hesitation as weakness, Melvern said. Then they may watch me hesitate in public rather than swear over concealed evidence. The decision cost him. His claim depended on a smooth accession. Still, the theater remained sealed. He trusted Clemency's craft on the royal dais while the doors to her own stage stayed locked. Clemency entered beneath the platform through a scenery hatch. Counterweights hung in orderly rows. One chain had been moved. Its hook carried pearl white wax. The transfer case came through here. The archive officer examined the drag marks. The silver case would fit between those rails. Melvern remained above them. Festival crews moved many ceremonial objects during construction. Then the inventory will name this one, Clemency said. It did not. She followed the altered chain to a false brace beneath the oath stone. The brace bore no weight. It formed a box between 2 beams. Oren crouched beside her. How do we open it? Not with a palace blade. Using Silas's curved joint hook under witness seal, she lifted the latch without cutting the wood. Inside lay the missing upper half of the succession tablet, wrapped in white accession cloth. No Marionette moved. No dead man spoke. The oath had survived because carpentry, cloth, and frightened hands had carried it farther than the archive intended. The archivist joined both halves beneath the winter lamps. The break aligned. Pearl wax met pearl wax. The silver backing completed one royal crest. The old oath was genuine. Melvern looked at it. Authenticity does not restore authority. The amendment superseded it. Clemency read the recovered section. It named the witnesses required before any succession line could be altered during a prince's minority. The king's sealkeeper, 2 elected winter councillors, the living heir, present and unbound. The chief regent could advise them. He could not replace them. Oren's face changed. Who witnessed the amendment? The succession clerk opened the later record. Anselve's name was absent. 1 winter councillor had died 6 days earlier. The second had been confined for alleged treason. 3 Regency officers appeared in their places. Melvern's name headed the list. The council acted under emergency continuity law, he said. The kingdom could not wait for dead, disloyal, or missing men. A missing witness delays an oath, Clemency said. It does not permit the regent to witness himself. The alternative was civil war. The alternative was a public record. The restored tablet contained more than names. Along its lower edge, engraved figures demonstrated the witness sequence. The sealkeeper presented the tablet with both hands. The counselors stood on either side. The regent remained before them, visible to the court, while the air touched the seal. Clemency thought of the crooked-crowned puppet inside the locked theater. Silas had copied not only the knife angle but the witness positions. The kneeling silver wolf held out both hands exactly as the sealkeeper did in the engraving. The crowned villain stepped behind him into the one place the original oath forbade the regent from taking. The puppet had preserved a physical interruption of the lawful ceremony. Not a name, not a motive. A place where one body had no right to stand. Melvern read the recognition in Oren's face. A children's performance cannot establish who occupied that position. No, Oren said. But the accession record establishes who was chief regent. Melvern did not confess. I stood where crisis required me to stand. If Ansel died before the amendment, another officer had to carry the oath. The death record says he fell after midnight, Clemency said. The amendment register says the witness assembly began before midnight. The times overlapped. Ansel had been alive when the succession witnesses gathered, yet the amended record had already removed him. Oren ordered the tablet and both records placed beneath public witness seal. He did not lift the theater closure. Clemency looked toward the children behind the ropes. You will show the city the document. I will, but not the stage that kept its movement alive. His silence answered. The second public bell rang. The restored oath had not named a murderer. It showed that the Regency prepared to replace Ansel before the hour the court claimed he died. Beneath the engraved witness figures, one final clause waited to be read aloud. Any disputed succession must be tested before the people by the original witness sequence. The old clause did not ask whether the city trusted Oren. It required the succession to survive the same public positions that had once been hidden. Melvernquist requested an immediate legal recess. The tablet was reconstructed from divided material under irregular custody, he said. No public test should proceed until the council rules on admissibility. The council accepted the amended oath without displaying the original. Clemency replied. Its caution arrived 17 years late. Oren stood before the unfinished dais while the square waited beyond the ropes. What does the test require? The original witnesses must be represented in their recorded positions, the archivist said. The disputed sequence must be performed before the people. Melvern looked toward the Winter Puppet Theater. A theatrical reenactment cannot carry royal authority. The oath calls for a witness sequence, Clemency said. Theater is the craft your law requires when the dead cannot stand again. No dead man may be made to speak. He will not. No puppet may accuse a living subject. They cannot. Then what will they prove? Where each body stood? What each hand carried? Which movement interrupted the oath? Oren ordered the Moon Marionettes brought to the square. Clemency did not move. The theater seal must be lifted first. The figures can be removed under evidence authority. You have used my stage, my husband's tools, and my puppets while calling the room that preserved them criminal. I will not let the final truth leave through a side door as seized property. Melvern said, The closure remains lawful. Then the test cannot proceed. The crowd saw the prince hesitate before the widow whose theater he had ordered destroyed. Oren looked toward the painted doors across the square. His seal still crossed them. Open the theater for the public test. Temporarily? Clemency asked. For as long as the oath requires. That is not restoration. No. At least he did not disguise it as one. Clemency crossed the square herself. Children pressed against the ropes. At the doors, she placed her fingers beneath the closure notice. A guard said, Only royal authority may break that seal. Oren answered behind her. She has it. Clemency tore the notice down. The doors opened onto broken footlights, and a split stage beneath the cracked painted moon. Nothing had healed while the palace investigated itself. She carried the crooked-crowned villain and the kneeling silver wolf into daylight. Clerks followed with the restored tablet, Ansel Vey's death file, and the amendment register. The public test began without music. Clemency placed the tablet on a witness stand. 2 clerks marked the counselors' positions from the engraved figures. The archive officer stood where the original record placed the sealkeeper. The Moon Marionettes remained still until moon glass lamps were angled over their joints. Then stored pressure entered the wood. The silver wolf lowered to one knee, both hands extended beneath an unseen tablet. The crooked-crowned figure approached from the front, occupying the lawful regent's place. For 3 breaths, nothing changed. Then it moved behind the kneeling wolf. A clerk called out the deviation. The regent has left the permitted position. The archivist marked it against the engraving. The puppet's hand reached toward the tablet. Its wrist changed direction. Its shoulder dropped. The stage knife descended along the same inward angle preserved in Ansel's sealed wound drawing. No puppet named Melvern. No dead voice crossed the square. But the amendment record named Melvern Chief Regent. The old oath fixed where the regent was permitted to stand. Silas's moonwood preserved someone in that role moving behind the sealkeeper before the fatal knife path began. Melvern raised his voice. Role is not identity. Festival performers wore crowns. Silas could have combined separate movements into political theater. Moonwood cannot combine movements, Clemency said. Each joint holds one continuous pressure path, according to the widow who profits from its authority, according to the shoulder channel measured by your clerks, the wound angle preserved by your physician, and the tablet impression found inside the puppet your investigators opened. The archive officer stepped forward. Blade 17 removed the tablet from that spine. I carried it intact to the succession wing. Melvern turned on him. You obeyed an unsigned instruction and now seek mercy through spectacle. I sic no merce. The officer placed his transfer copy beside the restored tablet. I cut it where the order marked. The cut crossed the original witness line, separating the chief regent's limited advisory role from those empowered to approve succession. The division had removed the clause that made Melvern's signature insufficient. A low sound passed through the square. Melvern faced Oren. You were a child. Your father was dying. Armed houses stood inside the capital. I preserved a succession the lawful witnesses could no longer secure. You replaced them, Oren said. I prevented collapse. You removed the rule that prevented the regent from making himself necessary. Melvern did not confess. He defended the amendment. Stability is not a crime. No, Clemency said. But killing the witness who could refuse you. Maybe. Melvern repeated. Your puppets still do not prove whose hand held the knife. That is true. Her answer denied him the overreach he wanted. The marionettes had established position and sequence. The records established concealment and altered procedure. Murder still required judgment. Oren looked at the oath dais, then at the broken theater behind Clemency. He removed the silver clasp from his coat and placed it beside the restored tablet. I will not swear the amended oath today. Melvern's face finally changed. Without accession, emergency authority remains with the Regency Council. And under that authority, Oren said, you may order this evidence seized. Melvern turned toward the guards. Secure the tablet. Detain the archive officer and Clemency Ward for interference with succession. The soldiers did not move at once. Then their captain looked to Oren. Oren had refused the crown. Melvern still held the law. The guards did not lower their weapons. Their captain stepped between Melvern and the restored tablet. Under which oath do you command us? He asked. Melvern's voice hardened. Under the Regency authority that remains in force until accession. The archivist turned the joined tablet toward the witness lamps. There is a custody clause beneath the public test provision. He read aloud. When a regent's authority is disputed by the original witness sequence, that regent may neither seize the evidence nor command the guard preserving it until an independent winter council has ruled. The square went still. Melvern looked at the tablet. That clause belonged to a repealed oath. A missing tablet is not a repealed tablet, Clemency said. And an amendment made without lawful witnesses cannot erase the safeguard it violated. The captain removed his hand from his sword. Until review, I cannot obey an interested regent's seizure order. Melvern turned toward the council officers behind him. Detain the captain. No one moved. Not because the Moon Marionettes had judged Melvern. They had not. The old oath. Altered witness list. Erased transfer report. Blade 17. and hidden tablet had placed his authority inside the dispute he was trying to control. Oren stepped down from the dais. I submit the succession claim and my own conduct to the Winter Council. Melvern stared at him. You would leave the kingdom without a sovereign. I would leave it without a man pretending certainty is law. You will invite every house to challenge you. Then they may challenge me in daylight. Oren ordered the surviving Winter Councillor released from confinement and the vacant seat filled by public election under the old oath. Until that assembly ruled, the guard captain would protect the evidence, the archive officer, and Clemency. Melvern was not declared a murderer in the square. He was stripped of emergency command and confined pending charges of unlawful amendment, destruction of evidence, and interference with the public succession test. As the guards approached, he did not confess. He looked at Oren with something colder than anger. When the border houses move against you, they will not care that your conscience was clean. Oren answered, It is not clean. His gaze moved to the split stage. That is why it must be judged too. The Winter Council sat for 6 days inside the open theater. Clemency insisted on the location. No private chamber. The city has watched its history carried behind locked doors long enough. Children sat in the front rows. Market women filled the aisles. Soldiers stood beside carpenters, whose hammers had broken the stage. The Moon Marionettes were shown only once more. They repeated no new crime. Clerks demonstrated the shoulder path, wound angle, and lawful witness positions. Everything else came from human records. The cut death page, covert warrant, forced drawer, erased transfer line, divided tablet, and archive officer's testimony. The council ruled that the amended succession had been unlawfully witnessed. It did not declare Oren illegitimate. The earlier oath allowed the king's acknowledged issue to inherit once a lawful Winter Council confirmed that no regent controlled the witness list. This time, the witnesses were chosen in public. Oren stood before them without a crown. Before accepting the restored oath, he faced Clemency. I ordered this theater closed. I allowed its stage to be broken because I feared disorder more than I respected the people who preserved what my court refused to keep. No excuse followed. No request for forgiveness. I cannot undo that permission. I can pay for the repair, return every seized tool, void the sedition order, and place this theater beyond royal censorship. Clemency remained beside Silas's workbench. Beyond your censorship? Beyond any crowns. Its charter will belong to the city, governed by its performers, teachers, and audience. And when the plays embarrass you, I will buy a ticket. A few children laughed. Clemency did not. Repair is not a line spoken before applause. No, it is what you do after the audience goes home. I know. He did not yet deserve to say more. The council confirmed his succession that afternoon. Oren swore the original oath with its safeguards restored. The tablet remained on public display in the theater archive beside copies of every record used to test it. Melvern's murder charge proceeded separately. The puppets had shown how the knife moved and where the regent stood. The court still had to determine whose hand completed the act. Clemency accepted nothing that required silence in return. The theater reopened before winter ended. Royal money repaired the roof and stage, but the charter named the building an independent house of public history. No ruler could close it without a city hearing. No archive could remove an exhibit without a witnessed receipt. On opening night, the painted moon still carried one visible crack. Clemency had ordered the carpenters to leave it. Oren arrived without guards and sat among the market families. After the final curtain, he found Clemency fastening the crooked crown inside its glass case. I once played a hero here, he said. You played one badly. I remember. You were better after you fell. He looked at the repaired boards. May I help with tomorrow's scenery? That depends. On what? Whether you can follow instructions without mistaking them for praise. For the first time since the hammers fell, Clemency saw the boy who had laughed beneath a paper moon, and the man who understood that goodness performed was not goodness proved. She handed him a paintbrush. Start with what you broke. He knelt beside the stage rail Silas had carved. Clemency did not forgive him because he wore a crown. She allowed him to begin earning a place beside her because he had learned not to ask the crown to do the work. Above them, the Moon Marionettes remained still. Their task had never been to judge the living, only to keep one true movement from being erased.